received. Analyzing. Please hold. Records found. Dr. Maxwell, Marconi, born January 2nd, 2061, Boston, Massachusetts. Died. Warning. Corrupted data. Playing known audio entries.
Oh boy. Maxwell Marconi. Unlike many of the others, he was a native to West Virginia. Grew up a super genius in Boston. Vault-Tec University got him on a loan, of sorts, from the Commonwealth Institute of Technology. I remember being introduced to him at Vault-Tec University. A 12-year-old boy already with a university degree. His aspirations only matched by his ego. A few years later he was at AVR Medical Center, Watauga, and several other places. Lecturing. Working on projects. He never had enough projects. He showed up at the Vault sometime in September of 2077, originally to oversee our medical program, and then finally as a resident. I don't know if it was his or Vault-Tec's idea. The first of many things that annoyed me about him was his constant need to change his hair color. Bright reds, neon blues, verdant greens, nearly weekly in some cases, monthly when his supplies were at low. Technically, Vault-Tec had policies on hygiene and grooming that included the natural hair colors, but I knew early on I had to let it slide. Mostly for women, but especially for him. He had no need to be polite or considerate, no outward need for friends. He had no problem explaining to most how they were just cogs in the machine. Oddly enough, that meant his rare praise was highly valued, highly sought after. If he was nice to you, you framed it on your wall for the entire vault to see. We frequently butted heads over his requests, sometimes reasonable, often outlandish. He had so many plans, so many projects, but I have to admit, I could have kept the vault running for 100 years. Major Starr called him our first fruit, a man unashamed of his deviance. Men, women, the occasional Miss Nanny, but nobody complained. When questioned, they appreciated his attentions and were left quite satisfied. Probably a decade or so into our tenure, he started making friends. His personality relaxed, just a bit, to let a few people in. He took quite a shine to Sebastian, something his father didn't appreciate. That I heard through the grapevine that Sebastian had turned him down, compassionately, kindly, and the two remained friends of affection. Didn't hurt that Sebastian made a mean cocktail. When reports and complaints arose from Annabelle's preferences, he passionately made a case that he'd take her into his department if nobody else would have her. While he'll never admit it, I think after a while, we all became his family, and he dearly cared about the vault. He frequently fought with Jerry Toucheur, over the chessboard at least, one of the few that Jerry truly enjoyed playing with. He even slipped me a few tips to make sure my games with Jerry were, at least, slightly challenging for the brute. My most shocking memory of Maxwell is where he casually remarked that to balance out the gene pool we could breed. I'm not sure if this was purely professional or his attempt at bringing me into his fold. He had proposed an extensive breeding programs, generations long, said to repopulate the world. We needed to think ahead. It was no surprise that he was linked to more than a dozen women in the first generation. I never thought him one for sweet gestures until just a few days before Reclamation Day. I found a stack of notes and suggestions for my future travels. Somehow he had spied a few of the overseer directives, along with a potted plant. It was a beautiful rose hybrid, one of the finest creations from our greenhouse, and a note that read it could grow in any adverse conditions, just like me. When I returned to Sutton, I was anxious to see Maxwell. Reminded me of my first year at Vault-Tec, fearfully waiting the grades from my teachers. He came in through my door, deposited a stack of handwritten journal on my coffee table. No weariness in his eyes, no fear, no pain, just a sense of intense wonder. He spent an hour talking about all he had seen. So many ideas for experiments, projects. This new world had given him so much curiosity. He showed me photographs of the camp they had set up so far. Automated purifiers, a water tool, just the beginning. While his initial experiments were much of a challenge for him, he had a 5-year plan. It replaced Sab's A. He'd get back to his breeding program. The destruction, he remarked, was just a return to a simple clean work surface. We'd rebuild. A new experiment. New variables. New results. When I told him of people returning to West Virginia, his smile was so wide he could have licked his eyebrows.
You should feel honored. I am the great, the glorious, the one, Maxwell Marconi. No middle initial. Middle initials are for businessmen and suits and ties. Of course, they were responsible. Bombs and all. You can't make an omelette without breaking a lot of eggs. Rather messy, I admit. But it gets the job done. Figured I would leave the vault with a few packers to carry everything I'd need. Everything I'd find. A great big mystery to solve in the wasteland of West Virginia. Not much of a loss, I'll admit. Stumbled onto the infected persons quite quickly. A small farm down the road from the vault. I had to dispatch him, of course, but I was very interested and studied its remains. Leadwoods was a breeding ground for Hicks and rednecks. Not much changed. Thank God they all met their maker. But, alas, I had no lab assistants. The responders were bred from cups and middies, but they brought with them a basic, very basic, understanding of science and how it could change the world, or at least find solutions to living in this new world. I almost had a very non-consensual experience with a Mr. Handy over at the Agricultural Center. Robots run in the world. My dreams have come true. Congratulations. I'm now a volunteer with the responders. I'm sure it'll look great next to my 3 doctorates, 2 masters, and my Pioneer Scout merit badges. Long walk up to Morgantown. Sadly, the Slocum Joe's is no longer open, but I bet the food hasn't gotten any worse. This operation at Morgantown Airport is pretty extensive. Nothing like before the war, but considering it was a bunch of cops, medics, and waywards, they didn't have bad. The lab here at the airport, they definitely studied the scorched play, but alas, they didn't have me. Maybe they would have survived. Otherwise, the notes on the infection, a vaccine, was possible. Now I turn around and head down to Charleston, the AV Medical Center. I wonder if my office, well, cubicle, is still intact. I think I left some sugar bombs in my left drawer. The grid maxi has struck again. Vaccine has been finished and applied to patient number. Me, if I grow 2 of anything, well, that could be fun. Reprogram a Miss Nanny with a pale reflection of your dead lover's personality. But no, special attachments. Why just talk when there could have been so many possibilities? Never thought the Free States could be capable of civilized speech, intelligent thought, or coming up with a way to track the scorched. But here it is between some red remains and an issue of backwoods men. Modern knights in armor. At least they had the sense to trade swords for guns. Zealots. Ruthless. But Alice couldn't stand up to the dragon. It was strange to walk through a Woto Gate again. My old apartment building is a pile of crushed metal and old beer cans. I guess I won't get my security deposit back. Even the great Maxwell Marconi needs help. A staff of assistants. And I get a bunch of vault survivors. Half of them are scared out of their minds. The other half are only good for trading my used underwear for less than mint condition Nuka-Cola bottles. I ran into Seb today. Was trading some old fusion cells for a few stim packs. He's lost weight. 10, maybe 20 pounds. Almost a skeleton since I last saw him. But that smell of his, it still knocks me down. A bit embarrassing to suddenly be so flushed. My heart rate going up exponentially. I knew of something in the background. Always at work. Now it has a name. Enclave. This vault under the White Springs would be perfect for my needs. We could all move down here. but most of them are terrified of Modus. I had a good laugh when I realized what Modus has done to the former occupants. Thomas Eckhart had some real balls. Modus will neither confirm nor deny what happened, but Maxian knows. We have gathered all the men, all the women. We could. Meanwhile, I haven't gotten laid in months. I guess my needs come after we deal with this scorched problem. Pun intended. I can add humming in a nuclear warhead on a precise location to my skill set. The Queen was big and beautiful, but sadly we had to end her. Lost a number of people. But, Lex lost one of his beautiful ass. I'm now missing May Abrams. Oh wow. They'll grow back. With the Queen dead, and the scorched not nearly the threat was, I'm setting up some field camps. Going to study this new world with its new biology, new ecosystems. I also have my needs. The doctor is in session, and he's looking for a few pagan.
Error. Warning. Further data corrupted. Awaiting response from mainframe computer. Time remaining 600. Calculating. Please hold.